She was used to being ignored. Most customers barely looked her in the eye, let alone remembered her name. But that day, something was different. Emma, a young waitress barely making ends meet, showed up for her shift at the bustling downtown diner, just like any other day. Tired, polite, and hopeful that her tips would be enough to cover rent, she wore the same faded jeans and worn sneakers, but around her neck hung a small, old pendant, something she never took off. It was a gift from her mother, the only thing she had left after losing her years ago. The manager was in a foul mood. Complaints had been stacking up, not about Emma, but someone had to take the fall. Before the lunch rush even began, she was called into the back and told her services were no longer needed. No explanation, no warning. Just like that, she was fired. Standing outside in the cold, holding her last paycheck and trying not to cry, she had no idea that someone inside the diner had been watching. He wasn't just another customer. The man sitting in the corner booth, dressed casually in jeans and a dark blazer, was one of the wealthiest tech billionaires in the country. Known for his low profile and sharp mind, Mr. Donovan was in town for a quiet meeting and happened to pick this diner out of pure chance. But what caught his attention wasn't the food or the service. It was the glint of the small pendant hanging from Emma's neck as she walked past his table. The moment he saw it, something in him shifted. His fork froze mid-air. His eyes locked onto the delicate charm, his face pale with disbelief. He stood up slowly, like someone moving through a dream, and stepped out just in time to see Emma turning the corner, her head down, unaware of the storm she'd just triggered. That pendant, he knew it. He had seen it once, long ago, under very different circumstances. It wasn't just jewelry. It was a symbol of a secret he'd buried, one that could change everything he thought he knew. Who was she? Why did she have it? And more importantly, what did it mean for the billionaire who'd spent years trying to forget the truth? What happens next will leave you speechless. Donovan stood on the sidewalk, scanning the street like a man searching for a ghost. The pendant, he couldn't stop thinking about it. It was oval-shaped, simple but old, just like the one that disappeared over 2 decades ago. The same one worn by someone he once cared about more than anything. Seeing it again wasn't just strange, it was impossible. That woman had vanished from his life without a trace, along with the necklace. Now suddenly, a poor waitress in a downtown diner had it. It didn't make sense. Back in her tiny apartment, Emma sat on the edge of her bed, still wearing her uniform. She clutched the envelope with her last paycheck and stared at the pendant hanging from her neck. Her mother used to say it was special, one of a kind. She'd whispered once with a faraway look in her eyes. But Emma had never asked questions. There was never time for stories. Life had always been about surviving, paying bills, and hoping tomorrow would be kinder. She had no idea her path had just crossed with someone whose world was built on secrets and buried pasts. Someone who might have the answers she never thought to look for. That night, Donovan couldn't sleep. He kept replaying the moment in his head. The pendant catching the light, the girl's tired smile, the way she looked like someone trying not to fall apart. He didn't even know her name. But the resemblance, it nagged at him. There was something about her eyes, something familiar. Could she be connected? Or was he chasing a ghost? The next morning, he returned to the diner. He asked the manager about the girl. The man just shrugged. Fired her yesterday. Don't know where she went. She wasn't here long. No one seemed to care. No one even remembered her last name. That hit Donovan harder than he expected. Someone who wore that pendant deserved to be remembered. He didn't give up. He called in a favor, a quiet background check, nothing too invasive. All he had was a description and the time she'd worked there. It wasn't much, but it was enough to start a trail. Meanwhile, Emma wandered the city with a growing sense of worry. She didn't know what she was going to do next. Her savings were almost gone. Her phone was nearly out of minutes. But something else was bothering her too, a strange feeling that someone was watching. Not in a threatening way, but like someone was following a thread, and she was the other end of it. She didn't know it yet, but her life was about to change, and not in any way she could have imagined. The rain started falling just as Emma stepped off the bus, the kind of soft drizzle that clung to her clothes and soaked through her thin hoodie. She pulled it tighter around her and hurried down the block, not sure where she was going, only that she needed to keep moving. Every part of her life felt like it was crumbling. She'd applied to 2 more jobs that morning and had gotten the same tired response. "We'll call you," but they never did. What she didn't know was that, just a few miles away, Donovan had finally gotten a name. Emma Taylor, age 22, no known relatives, no father listed on the birth certificate. Her mother had passed away when she was only 16. After that, Emma had bounced around part-time jobs and barely made it through high school. No criminal record, no history of trouble, just a quiet life lived in the margins. But the one detail that shook Donovan the most, her mother's name, Lila. He hadn't heard that name in over 20 years. Lila had been everything to him once. Back before the money, the companies, the boardrooms, there was her. And just like Emma, she'd worn that same pendant around her neck. The same eyes, too. Now everything started to line up in a way that felt too perfect, too painful. Donovan wasn't ready to face it. Not yet. So instead, he sent someone, a quiet man in a black coat who followed Emma from a distance. Not to scare her, just to keep her safe and close. But Emma was sharp. She'd grown up trusting her instincts, and lately they were screaming. She kept catching glimpses of the same face in the crowd, the same figure across the street. It was subtle, but it was there. Someone was watching her. At the same time, another thread was quietly unraveling. A woman named Claire, a former assistant of Donovan's who had been pushed out years ago, was digging through old files for a different reason. She had her own questions about Donovan's past, especially about Lila. Claire had always suspected there was more to that story, and now, with news of him suddenly showing up at a random diner, she sensed something big was coming. As Emma sat alone in a laundromat that night, warming her hands over a broken dryer, she looked down at her pendant again. She didn't know why, but something was changing. She could feel it, like the past was waking up and chasing her down. And it wouldn't be long before it caught her. Emma didn't go home that night. Something told her it wasn't safe, not in the obvious, physical way, but in that quiet, heavy way where you just know things aren't what they seem. She stayed on a bench outside a 24-hour corner store, wrapped in her hoodie, pretending to sleep. The pendant stayed tucked beneath her shirt, but she kept touching it without realizing. It felt warm, heavier than usual, like it was holding some kind of weight she hadn't noticed before. Across the street, the man in the black coat watched from a car. He hadn't been told why he was following her, only that it was important. But even he could see it now. This wasn't just another job. Something about the girl, the way she moved, how alone she seemed, it stirred something even in him. He picked up his phone and called Donovan. "She's still outside. You sure you want to keep this going?" Donovan didn't answer at first. He was sitting alone in his penthouse office, staring at an old photo of Lila. Her smile, her eyes, Emma's eyes. He hadn't stopped thinking about it since the diner. What if she really was his daughter? What if the past he'd buried was alive and breathing and walking around with no idea who she truly was? Meanwhile, Claire had found something. A scanned letter, half buried in an archived email thread from over 20 years ago. It was written in Lila's handwriting, short, panicked, and sent just before she disappeared. It mentioned the pendant. "If anything happens to me, she'll have the pendant. That's how you'll know." Claire stared at the screen, heart pounding. She wasn't sure what disturbed her more, what the letter meant, or what Donovan might do if he found out. Emma finally stood and started walking again, unaware that 3 different people were now orbiting around her for reasons she couldn't begin to guess. She just knew she needed answers, maybe even closure. She remembered her mom mentioning a name once, Donovan, but it had sounded like a passing memory, not a person who'd turn her world upside down. Then, just before sunrise, she stopped outside a tall glass building downtown. She didn't know why her feet had brought her there, but something pulled her in. She stared up at the sign, *** Donovan Industries, ***. Her heart started to race. Was this connected? Was he connected? Inside, Donovan was already on his way down, not knowing she was there, not knowing the moment was about to happen. 2 lies, 1 past, and a truth waiting to explode. Emma stood frozen outside the glass doors, unsure whether to go in or run. The name above the building echoed in her mind. *Donovan*. It had meant nothing to her for years, just a stray word her mother had whispered once in her sleep. But now, standing here, something deep inside her stirred. Curiosity, fear, maybe both. She reached for the pendant out of instinct, holding it tight as the city buzzed around her. She didn't know this place, didn't know this man, but she had to find out why everything was suddenly pointing here. Inside, Donovan stepped into the elevator. His heart thudded in his chest, not from nerves, he didn't get nervous, but from the pressure of everything crashing in. He still didn't know how he would speak to her. What could he say? Think I'm your father, ***. The words felt ridiculous in his head. What if he was wrong? Then, just as the elevator doors slid open to the lobby, one of his assistants rushed over, holding a phone. "Sir, you should see this," she said, voice low. Donovan took the phone, expecting another meeting reschedule or business update, but what he saw made his blood run cold. A photo of Claire, standing with someone he hadn't seen in years, his former business partner, Andrew Hale, a man who'd vanished from public life around the same time Layla did. Donovan's thoughts spun. Hale had always been interested in Leela, too interested, and they'd fought over it more than once, right before everything fell apart. Could it be possible Hale had something to do with her disappearance? Could he have been hiding something all these years? Now he was suddenly back, and with Claire. Donovan didn't have time to process it, because then he saw her, Emma. She had just stepped through the front doors, nervously looking around. For a moment, neither of them moved. The pendant glinted under the lobby lights, and in that second, everything locked into place. But before he could say a word, a loud voice echoed across the room. "Emma," she turned. Standing behind her was a man in a dark suit, Andrew Hale. Older, colder, but with a strangely familiar face. Emma took a step back instinctively. She didn't know who he was, but something about the way he looked at her made her skin crawl. Donovan's chest tightened. What was he doing there? Andrew smiled gently, but his eyes stayed sharp. "I've been looking for you for a long time." Emma's breath caught in her throat. So had Donovan's. Everything was no longer just about the pendant. It was about the truth they'd all tried to forget, and the danger that was finally catching up to them. Emma froze between the two men, feeling like the ground beneath her had vanished. Donovan stood a few feet away, eyes locked on Andrew Hale, jaw clenched tight. Andrew, on the other hand, wore a thin smile, like he already knew he was in control. The tension in the room was thick, like air before a storm. "You knew my mom?" Emma finally asked, her voice shaking. Andrew turned to her, softer now. "Leela was special. She meant a lot to me, and to him." He nodded toward Donovan, "But he left her behind. I didn't." "That's not true," Donovan said, stepping forward. "He was obsessed with her. When she told him to stay away, he didn't listen. That's why she disappeared. Because of him." Emma's head spun. None of it made sense. All these years, she'd known nothing about her father, and now both these powerful men claimed they had some connection to her mother. She pulled out the pendant and looked at it like it might give her answers. Andrew's smile dropped. That pendant belonged to a woman who trusted the wrong man. "Ask yourself, Emma, who's really been hiding the truth." "I never even knew she had a child," Donovan said, his voice thick with regret. If I had known, I would have found her. I would have found *U*. Emma looked between them, anger building in her chest. Why now? Why am I only finding this out because I got fired from a diner? Donovan stepped forward, because that pendant was the only sign left. When I saw it, I knew. I had to know who you were. Andrew's voice sharpened. He doesn't want you to know the rest. He thinks you'll just forget what really happened to your mother. That's when it clicked. Emma looked at both of them. What did happen to her? Silence. Donovan turned pale. Leela didn't just leave. She was trying to protect you. From him. Andrew's eyes darkened. Careful, Donovan. Suddenly, Emma reached into her jacket and pulled out an old photo she'd kept hidden for years, a picture of her mom holding her as a baby, smiling in front of a small cabin, and next to her was neither man. Both Donovan and Andrew stared, confused. Emma stared at the photo, heart pounding. This man right here. Who is he? It wasn't Donovan. It wasn't Andrew. Everything they thought they knew shattered in a second, because now it looked like neither of them was her real father. And someone else out there still held the real truth. Emma stared at the photo, her fingers trembling slightly. The man in the picture wasn't Donovan, and it definitely wasn't Andrew. Her mother's arm was looped through his, her smile bright and real. It was a quiet moment, full of peace, nothing like the chaos now surrounding her. Donovan leaned in, eyes narrowing. That's not me, he said, almost to himself. Andrew looked stunned. For the first time, his confident mask slipped. That can't be. Emma stepped back, holding the photo close. Her voice was quiet but firm. This man raised me for a short while, when I was really little. Then he disappeared. My mom said he had to go away for a reason. I always thought she meant he left us. But maybe he didn't leave by choice. Donovan took a breath. Do you know his name? Emma shook her head. No, she never told me. She just said he was someone she trusted once, someone good, but caught in something dangerous. Andrew's jaw tightened. This changes nothing. Emma gave him a sharp look. No, it changes everything. You both claim to care about my mother, but neither of you protected her. You were too busy fighting over her to see what she really needed: safety, peace. Maybe this man gave her that for a little while. Claire had quietly entered the lobby and now stood near the edge of the scene, watching with a look of quiet understanding. We searched so hard for answers, she said. But sometimes the truth is in the silence. Maybe Lila didn't want either of you to find her. Maybe she just wanted to raise her daughter in peace. Emma nodded slowly. And that's exactly what I'm going to do for myself now. Donovan stepped forward. Emma, I don't know if I'm your father. But if I'm not, I still want to help, not to control you, but to support you. You deserve more than what life's handed you. She looked at him for a long moment. Then let me decide what that looks like. He nodded. As Emma walked out of the building, the early morning sun broke through the clouds. The city looked different now, not easier, but clearer. She didn't have all the answers, but she had something better. A direction, a choice. She kept the pendant close, not for what it might prove, but for what it reminded her. She came from strength, from survival, from a woman who gave everything to protect her. The mystery wasn't fully solved, but Emma was no longer lost, and that was enough to begin again.